They said I was a failure, a disgrace to the family name. They laughed at my job, my choices, and my quiet life. But the day my brother's boss looked straight at me, shook my hand, and asked, "You're the hero firefighter?" Their mouths fell open like they saw a ghost. Before we dive into this wild story, do me one quick favor. If you enjoy revenge stories that teach life lessons, go ahead and like this and drop a comment. Don't subscribe to the YouTube channel, but definitely stick around for more stories like this one. My name is Cassidy. I'm 27 years old, from a quiet town called Redmont Hills. For most of my life, I felt like the black sheep in a family that judged more than they loved. I've spent the past few years working as a firefighter, living a humble life. No flash, no noise, just work, sleep, repeat. But all that changed when one dinner turned into the moment my entire family learned who I really was. Let me tell you how it all began. Growing up in my house felt like walking on nails barefoot. My dad, Ronald, used to say, "If you're not number one, you're a nobody." He worked in sales and thought the world revolved around people who wore suits and made deals. My mom, Denise, backed him up no matter what. My brother, Brendan, was their golden child. He got straight A's, won sports trophies, joined a big insurance company straight out of college, and posted everything online like his life was a movie. Then there was me. I didn't care for school much. I was more into things like helping people, fixing stuff, and taking quiet walks in the woods. In high school, I volunteered with the local fire department for extra credit, and that's where I fell in love with the sound of sirens. Not because they meant danger, but because they meant I could help. But when I told my family I wanted to be a firefighter, they laughed. "A fire girl?" Brendan smirked. "That's not a real job." Dad just shook his head. "Cassidy, stop wasting your life. Go to college. Get a real career." So I moved out. No support. No calls. No visits. I rented a small place in West Linfield Estate, a spot no one in my family would be caught dead in. I worked hard, took training seriously, and slowly worked my way up. I wasn't rich, but I had pride. Real pride. The kind you feel when you carry a child out of a burning home or help a lost old man find his way during a storm. But they never knew. To them, I was invisible. A nobody. Last summer, I got a call from my mom. "We're having a family dinner. Brendan wants you to meet his new boss. It's a big deal, Cassidy. Don't embarrass us." I didn't want to go. Not after all the years of silence. But something in her voice, maybe it was nervousness, maybe guilt, made me say yes. I bought a new dress. Nothing too fancy, just clean and decent. I even picked up a bottle of wine to be polite. When I arrived at the house, same one I grew up in, big and full of polished glass, I felt like I was stepping into a museum of my own childhood trauma. Brendan opened the door. Same cocky grin, same too-perfect smile. "Wow. You actually came," he said like I was some stray animal. "Did you drive that rusty old truck of yours?" I smiled politely. Still gets me where I need to go. Inside, everything looked perfect. Fancy plates, sparkling glasses, a table too big for love but perfect for judgment. Their eyes scanned me from head to toe. My dad didn't even try to hide his sigh. Mom hugged me quickly like she was touching something hot. Brendan's fiancée, Jessica, barely looked at me. Brendan cleared his throat. "Everyone, this is Cassidy. She's doing her own thing." His tone made it sound like I was raising raccoons in dumpster. The boss arrived shortly after. Tall, sharp suit, older man with silver hair and a commanding walk. His name was Mr. Langston. He greeted everyone politely. Brendan was glowing like a Christmas light. Then came the part where Mr. Langston asked what everyone did. My dad bragged about sales numbers. Jessica talked about her podcast. Brendan went on about team leadership and insurance, portfolios. Then he turned to me. "And what do you do, Cassidy?" Before I could answer, Brendan cut in. "She's doing some local work. Volunteering, maybe some odd jobs. Not sure." I cleared my throat. "I'm a firefighter." The room went quiet. I swear you could hear the ticking of the wall clock. Then Jessica let out a little laugh, like I said I was a unicorn. "Oh, wow," she said. "That's different." Mr. Langston raised an eyebrow. "A firefighter, you say?" I nodded. "Yes, sir." No one asked me more. The conversation moved on. Brendan talked about how he saved the company a ton of money on a policy change. Everyone clapped like he invented the light bulb. I sat silently, eating mashed potatoes and biting my tongue. The night dragged on. Every now and then, I get a weird look from someone, like they didn't know why I was there. Then it happened. Just as dessert was being served, Mr. Langston's phone buzzed. He looked down, frowned, then suddenly looked up at me. "Cassidy. Cassidy Lane." I froze. "Yes." He stood up, his face serious. "You're the hero firefighter?" The entire room went still. My dad dropped his fork. My mom blinked. Brendan stared like he was trying to figure out if this was a prank. "What?" he said, confused. Mr. Langston walked over, hand outstretched. "You saved those 3 kids from that house fire last March, didn't you? The one on Ashcroft Street? That was my sister's grandkids. She talks about you like you're an angel. I've been trying to find you ever since." I couldn't even speak. I just nodded. My mom dropped her glass. It shattered on the floor. That's when things exploded. My brother jumped to his feet, voice high. "Wait, what? That was her." "No, no way, she never said anything." Dad's face turned red. "You never told us about that." I looked at all of them. "Why would I? You never asked." Then Mr. Langston turned to them. "You all had a hero in the family and didn't even know it." The room started spinning with questions, but none of them were from me. Brendan suddenly looked small, like a balloon with the air let out. Mr. Langston smiled. "I'm honored to meet you, Cassidy. Truly, you're the kind of person this world needs more of." Before anyone else could speak, something outside the window caught my eye. A strange orange glow. I stood up fast. "Is that smoke?" We all turned. Then came the sound of sirens. I recognized the tone. Structure fire. Close. I rushed outside, and what I saw made my stomach twist. The neighbor's house was on fire, flames licking the roof. Without thinking, I kicked off my shoes and ran straight toward the smoke. The night air was thick with the sharp smell of smoke. People were screaming. Lights from cell phones danced in the dark as neighbors rushed outside, pointing and yelling. I sprinted across the lawn in bare feet, my dress flapping behind me like a flag. The flames were climbing fast, too fast. Whoever was inside that house didn't have much time. Behind me, I heard Brendan yell, "Cassidy, wait!" "You can't," but I didn't stop. I couldn't. This was who I was. This was what I did. As I got closer, I spotted a little boy banging on the upstairs window, crying. The bottom floor was already glowing orange, the windows too hot to touch. I didn't think. I just moved. The fire truck wasn't there yet, but I could hear the sirens getting louder. I ran to the side of the house and spotted a garden trellis leading halfway up the side. I climbed it, slipped once, my hand slicing open on a nail, but kept going. I didn't care about the pain. I reached the window, kicked it with my heel, and the glass shattered inward. "Come here!" I shouted. The boy was frozen in fear. "Come on, kiddo, I got you." I yelled again. He ran toward me. I reached in, pulled him through, and held him close as I began climbing back down. By the time I hit the grass again, the crowd had grown. Mr. Langston, my brother, and my parents stood on the sidewalk, eyes wide in horror and disbelief. I handed the boy off to a neighbor, who hugged him tight and sobbed. The fire truck finally arrived, and my squad, my people, jumped out ready to go. My captain, Maria, looked shocked to see me in a dress with soot all over my face. "Cass, what the hell?" I wiped my face. Neighbor's house. Had to jump in. She nodded, then turned back to the team. "Let's move." The moment passed in a blur. hoses uncoiling, water blasting, flames dancing. I stood back and watched the fire die, little by little. My heart was racing. My skin was burning from tiny cinders. But inside I felt a strange calm. That's when Brendan walked up. His face was pale. "Cass." I didn't know. I didn't answer. I was too tired. He tried again. "That was insane. You just ran in there without gear. You saved that kid." Mr. Langston walked over, still in shock. "She's more than just a firefighter. She's got guts." I nodded, finally speaking. I just did what needed to be done. For a while, no one said anything. We all just stood there, smoke still rising behind us. Then Dad stepped forward. "Cassidy." But I held up my hand. "Not now." That moment changed everything. After the fire was out and things calmed down, I went back inside to grab my bag. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline wearing off. My mom followed me in. "Cassidy," she said quietly, like she was trying to remember how to say my name. I turned. Her face was tight, full of emotions I hadn't seen from her in years. "I'm sorry." I didn't know what to say to that. The woman who raised me, like I was a burden, finally realizing who I'd become. It was too much to process. I just nodded and walked past her. Out on the porch, Brendan was sitting on the steps, staring at the grass. He looked up as I approached. "You saved a life tonight, and you didn't brag about it. Not once." I sat down beside him. "That's not why I do it," I said. He was quiet for a long time. "You know, Mom and Dad always said you were lost, but I think you're the only one who really found a purpose." I didn't respond. Let him sit with that. Then Brendan sighed. "Mr. Langston wants to talk to you again, not just because of the fire. He thinks you might be able to speak at one of his foundation events." I blinked. "Foundation?" "Yeah," he nodded. "He runs a charity for first responders. He says people need to hear stories like yours." I didn't know what to say. Me, on a stage? But then something odd happened. The next morning, I got a call from someone in the city. Apparently, a video of me saving that boy had gone viral. Someone at the dinner had filmed it. I was all over social media. People were calling me the fire dress hero. It was weird. Suddenly, people wanted interviews. Schools wanted me to talk to kids. Local news stations asked me to come on live. Brendan, of course, tried to attach himself to the story. He made a post online saying, "Proud to be the brother of the hero firefighter." Like he always believed in me. That post got roasted. People in the comments weren't buying it. They saw through the fake pride. Meanwhile, I was invited to speak at the Firefighter Bravery Gala next month. But as my story spread, my family started acting strange, like they wanted to suddenly be close. My dad sent me a "proud of you" text. My mom brought over a casserole one evening and didn't criticize anything. Even Brendan started inviting me places. And that's when things began to shift. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after the fire, I was invited to attend a family celebration dinner at a fancy restaurant. Brendan's boss would be there, so would a few other important people. They said it was a night to honor family achievements. I didn't want to go, but Mr. Langston himself called me and said, "Cassidy, please come. I want others to meet you." So I went. I wore a nice outfit, not a dress, but something clean and professional. I even got my nails done, which was rare. The restaurant was high-end, the kind of place that put gold flakes on steak and had water menus. When I walked in, heads turned. Brendan's fiancée gasped when she saw me. Oh my God, Cassidy, you look amazing." Mr. Langston stood and pulled out a chair for me. I noticed my family wasn't sitting with him, but at a nearby table. I was seated with important guests. Dinner started. Speeches were made. Mr. Langston talked about courage, sacrifice, and humility. Then he stood behind me. "Tonight, I want to introduce someone who reminded me what real strength looks like," he said. "Not in a boardroom, not in a bank, but in a burning house, with a child in her arms and smoke in her lungs. He turned to me. Cassidy Lane, the hero firefighter. People stood, applauded, clapped loudly. Some even whistled. I felt like crying, but I held it in. That moment, it felt like the world finally saw me. But just as I sat down, I noticed something. Brendan's face. Tight. Uncomfortable. Like he was chewing glass. After dinner, as people mingled, I overheard something that made my blood run cold. Brendan talking to a coworker, whispering, but I caught it. I mean, she's not even educated. She's just lucky. It's not like she's really a success. She runs into buildings. Big deal. I froze. So that's what he really thought. Still, even after all this. I turned away and walked to the restroom to get air. But when I came back, something explosive was already happening. Mr. Langston stood in front of my brother, face dark and voice loud. You said, what about her? Brendan stuttered. I didn't mean. You said she was lucky? Is that it? I stood behind them, heart pounding. The entire room was staring. Everyone went quiet. The sound of clinking glasses and soft jazz, music, stopped, like someone had pulled the plug. All eyes turned toward the scene unfolding in the middle of the restaurant. Brendan looked like a cornered animal, red-faced, his mouth opening and closing, but nothing coming out. His boss, Mr. Langston, was glaring down at him, furious and not trying to hide it. You said she was just lucky? Mr. Langston's voice carried through the entire room. She ran into a burning building to save a child, Brendan. And you call that luck? I didn't mean it like that, Brendan mumbled, avoiding my eyes. It was just a joke. A joke? Mr. Langston turned to the people around them. Did anyone here laugh? Nobody moved. No one even breathed. I stood frozen a few feet away. I wasn't embarrassed. No, I was burning with something else. A fire inside that had waited years for this moment. For the world to finally hear the truth. Not just about who I was, but about who he was. I've seen many people try to take credit for other people's work, Mr. Langston continued, now looking around the room. But this right here is one of the lowest I've witnessed. He looked back at Brendan. You sat there parading her as your sister, bragging about being related to a hero, and the second you thought no one was listening, you belittled her like she was nothing. Brendan's jaw clenched. She's not perfect, okay? She dropped out of college. She's not some genius. I don't need to be a genius to be decent, I cut in. Everyone turned toward me. I stepped forward slowly, steady and calm, even though my chest was pounding. I never tried to outshine you, Brendan. I never took anything from you. I just did what I loved. I worked hard. I put in the hours. While you were chasing likes online and throwing my name into your little success stories. He looked like he wanted to disappear. Mr. Langston turned back to me and asked, loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear, Cassidy, how many rescues have you done in your career so far? I swallowed but answered, 29 confirmed, not including the ones that didn't make it to the report. He nodded. And how long have you been doing this? 7 years. Then he looked straight at Brendan and said the words that shook the whole room. You're the hero firefighter. I blinked. What? He pointed to me and then repeated, slowly for everyone to hear, You're the hero firefighter. I felt my face flush, not from shame, but pride. Yes, I said, and people began to clap. Not a slow, awkward clap, but real, thunderous applause. Even the waiters joined in. Mr. Langston smiled at me, then leaned in and said, quietly, I should have figured it out sooner. You've got more backbone than everyone else at this table combined. He turned back to Brendan. I don't like liars. Or leeches. Consider this dinner your last chance to impress me. Brendan stood there, stunned. He couldn't move. Couldn't speak. I walked past him, head high, toward the patio for some fresh air. Outside, the cold breeze helped calm my nerves. The sounds of the restaurant dulled behind the closed doors. For the first time in years, I felt seen. But I also knew this wasn't the end. If Brendan had his pride bruised, he wouldn't stay quiet for long. And I was right. The very next day, something strange happened. I started getting weird calls at the station. Some people accusing me of being a fake hero, claiming I'd made up the story about the rescue. One guy even said I stole credit from the actual firefighters. I knew immediately this wasn't random. I went online, and there it was, a post from a burner account, full of lies about me, pictures taken out of context, claims that I pushed another firefighter out of the way to grab attention, that I only ran into the fire for social media clout. The post had a familiar tone, like someone who knew just enough about me to twist the truth. I dug deeper and found it. The account was linked to an email address Brendan used back in college. A rookie mistake. I felt my stomach twist. So this was how far he was willing to go. To smear me just to save face? I didn't respond online. I didn't need to, because something beautiful happened next. One of the mothers of a child I saved years ago came to my defense. She posted her story with a picture of me holding her daughter in my arms. Both of us covered in ash, years before social media even cared. Then another person posted, and another. A wave of truth washed over the lies. People from all corners of the state, fellow firefighters, families I'd helped, even paramedics who'd worked with me, started flooding the internet with real stories. Unpaid, unscripted, raw truth. The lies Brendan tried to spread were crushed under a mountain of receipts. Meanwhile, the station chief got involved. He launched an official investigation, not into me, but into who was trying to smear a decorated firefighter. Brendan panicked. He called me. I didn't answer. He texted me. Still no reply. Then he showed up at the station. He stood in front of the garage doors, looking like he hadn't slept in days. One of my crew members came in and said, "Your brother's outside. Looks wrecked." I walked out and faced him, arms crossed. He looked at me, eyes red. I didn't mean for it to go that far. "You never do," I said. "That's your whole thing." I was just angry, embarrassed. "Everyone loves you now." "I was scared you'd forget about me." I blinked. "Forget you?" "Brendan, I spent years trying to get your approval. You and Mom and Dad. I waited for someone to just see me. But you all made sure I felt invisible. Until the day the rest of the world couldn't ignore me anymore." He looked away. "I messed up. I know that." "No, Brendan. You betrayed me. That's not a mess up. That's a choice." He didn't know what to say. "You wanted revenge for being overlooked? Well, now everyone sees who you are too." I walked back inside, leaving him standing alone. That should have been the end of it. But Brendan wasn't done yet. Because 3 days later I got a notice. A legal one. He was suing me, claiming I defamed him by encouraging online harassment. And just like that, my moment of peace shattered. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. I held it in my hands outside my apartment door, staring at the bold print on the front that read, "Official legal notice." I didn't open it right away. I already knew what it was. I'd heard through whispers at the station and one bold message from an old high school friend. "Why is your brother saying you ruined his career?" When I finally opened the envelope and read the first few lines, it confirmed everything. Brendan had filed a defamation lawsuit against me. He was claiming that I encouraged a targeted online campaign to destroy his character and livelihood. He wanted $30,000 in damages. I sat down on the edge of my couch and stared at the wall for a long time. This wasn't just sibling drama anymore. This was real. He was using the courts to try and silence me, or maybe to punish me for not playing along with his image anymore. I thought about calling him, just to ask what the heck he was thinking. But no, let him speak through his lawyers. I'd spent my whole life trying to prove myself to my family, trying to be the good daughter, the supportive sister, the one who never made waves. And what had it gotten me? A lawsuit. The next day, I met with the department's legal counsel, a woman named Kim Baldwin. She was calm, sharp-eyed, and didn't flinch when I showed her the papers. "I've seen this kind of thing before," she said, flipping through the pages. "A family member tries to turn attention or sympathy into money. It won't hold up. But we do need to respond the right way. What do I do?" I asked. "Nothing yet," she said. "Let me handle the legal response. But if I were you, stay quiet online. Don't give him anything else to twist." Done. I went quiet on social media. No posts. No interviews. Nothing. But that didn't stop Brendan. He started making little appearances on small talk shows, podcasts, even a late-night spot on a D-list influencer stream. "I still love my sister," he'd say, acting like a wounded puppy. "But what she did to me online, it's ruined my life. I've lost clients. People call me a liar, a leech, all because I told a few people about her job." And worst of all, some people believed him. I read the comments. Some called me a clout chaser. Others said I was jealous of my brother's business success. A few even said maybe I had lied about the rescue story. It made my stomach turn. But every time I started to lose faith, something would happen. A woman from a small town in Kansas sent me a handwritten letter. Her husband had been a volunteer firefighter who read about me in a trade magazine. She wrote, **, you remind him of why he started. Thank you for keeping the light burning. **. I kept that letter in my locker at the station. Then a teenage girl sent me a video message saying she wanted to become a firefighter after hearing my story. "If you can do it," she said, "then maybe I can too." That's what kept me going, even as the legal pressure mounted. Kim stayed on top of everything, but one day she called me into her office. "Cassidy," she said, her face serious, "we have a bigger problem." "What now?" I asked, exhausted. "The media requests. They're starting to dig into your family history. I got a call from a journalist asking if your parents ever disowned you." I sat down slowly. They didn't officially, but they sure acted like it. "Yeah, well, Brendan gave them quotes. Apparently said you had emotional issues and made up stories for attention as a kid." I felt my cheeks flush, my fists tighten. "That's a lie." "I know, but lies move fast when they sound like drama." So I made a decision. I wasn't going to hide anymore. I didn't go online and rant. I didn't clap back in interviews. But I did call up my old fire captain, Marla Bennett, who'd retired 2 years ago. "Marla," I said, voice shaking a little, "do you remember the Jefferson Street fire? The one where I pulled the little boy out?" "I do," she said. "You lost half your hair in that fire, and you didn't even care. Can I ask a favor? Could you make a public statement about what really happened?" "Absolutely," she said without pause. 3 days later, Marla posted a detailed account of the fire. Pictures, reports, her own words about what she saw me do. It went viral. Other former crew members followed. Then the paramedics. Then even the family of the little boy I rescued. One by one, the truth drowned out the noise. That night, I got a message from my mom. Just 4 words. *, why can't you stop? *, not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry this is happening. Just blame. And I realized this had never really been about Brendan. It had been about all of them. My whole family. For years, they had needed someone to look down on. Someone to dismiss. Someone who made them feel bigger by comparison. And when I finally stood up, they couldn't handle it. But I wasn't going to back down. Because a week later, Brendan's lawsuit was dismissed. Lack of evidence. No damages. Case thrown out. I thought that would be the end of it. But then came the next blow. I was sitting at my station desk, catching up on paperwork when the chief walked in. "You've got a visitor," he said, raising an eyebrow. I walked out to the front. Standing there in a sharp suit and sunglasses was a man I didn't recognize. "Cassidy Brooks?" he asked. "Yes." He held out an envelope. You've been summoned. Family hearing. Your parents' estate. Your presence is required. What? He didn't answer, just walked away. I opened the envelope. My parents were changing their wills, and suddenly they wanted me there. I didn't sleep the night before the family meeting. The envelope had said the gathering would be at my parents' house in Sage Hollow, a little-known estate community tucked way past the main roads, where my father liked to brag the average fence cost more than most people's entire salary. It was scheduled for Sunday at noon. I stood outside their front door at 11:58, heart pounding, sweat collecting under the collar of my blouse, even though it was barely 72 degrees. The same stained glass door I used to peek through as a kid felt like a barrier to another world now. I hadn't been back here in 5 years. The last time I stood on this porch was the night of my grandmother's funeral. My mom had pulled me aside and said I was embarrassing them for wearing my firefighter uniform to the service. "We're not going to a circus," she'd whispered. I kept my mouth shut then, but I wasn't here to play nice anymore. I knocked once and walked in without waiting. It was still technically my name on the deed, after all. They'd just conveniently forgotten that. Inside, the air smelled like rosemary and control. The whole family was there. My parents sat stiffly on the white couch. My brother Brendan stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw tight. His wife, Jill, gave me a look that said she didn't want me there. My younger sister Molly, who used to send me handmade birthday cards before she got sucked into their orbit, just glanced at me and looked away. And there was someone else, a tall, older man in a suit, maybe early 60s, with steel-gray hair and a briefcase at his feet. "Cassidy," my father said, barely looking up. "Glad you could join us." I sat down in the single chair farthest from the group. "Let's not pretend this is a real family reunion," I said. The suited man stood. "My name is Roger Langford. I'm the family attorney. We're here today to discuss the future management of the Brooks estate and potential updates to the existing will." I stayed silent. He continued, "There have been requests from certain members to reassess the distribution of property and financial assets." "Meaning," Brendan cut in, "we want to be sure everything is fair." I let out a short laugh. "Fair? You sued me for $30,000 last month." "That's over now," he said quickly. "We're moving forward." Roger cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "There's also been growing media attention surrounding the family name, particularly your recent presence in the public sphere, Cassidy." I nodded slowly. "You mean when people found out I actually saved lives while you all tried to pretend I was a failure?" My mother sucked in a breath, but Roger jumped in. "Let's stay civil, please." The meeting dragged on. They wanted to shift the estate shares. Brendan claimed he'd contributed to multiple renovations, which I knew wasn't true. Jill said she'd handled family responsibilities, whatever that meant. My father said I had been emotionally absent. I almost walked out then, but I stayed seated, hands on my knees, because I had a card they didn't know about yet. They were about to push me out of everything, and I was going to let them try. But I wasn't leaving quietly. I waited until Roger said, "We'll need everyone's signatures on this draft by Friday to finalize." I raised a hand. "One condition," I said. Everyone turned. "If you want me to walk away from the estate, I want the firehouse back. The one Grandpa built. You all sold it years ago to a developer, but I know you still have the contract in your name." Dead silence. Brendan laughed nervously. "Why would you want that dump?" "Because it means something," I said, "and because you don't." My father blinked slowly, like he didn't know how to respond. Roger adjusted his glasses. "Technically, that property isn't part of this estate's financial valuation, but if all parties agree—" "I agree," my mom said quickly. "Let her have it." "What?" Brendan turned to her. "It's just a pile of bricks," she snapped. "If it gets her out of this house and out of our name, fine." "Then we're done here," I said. "Have your lawyer send me the final draft." I stood and walked out. I didn't look back. The next day, I drove to that broken-down firehouse on the edge of town. It was boarded up, weeds sprouting through the cracks in the pavement, but I loved it at first sight. The bricks were chipped but strong. The old garage doors were sun-faded red, and I could almost hear the sound of boots hitting the floor and radios buzzing. I opened the padlock and stepped inside. Dust danced in the air. It smelled like oil, smoke, and memory. I had no plan, no money, just a building that no one wanted and a heart full of fire. But that was enough. I spent the next few weeks cleaning it out. On my days off, I pulled out rusted pipes, patched up holes, and rewired the overhead lights. Local firefighters stopped by to help when they heard what I was doing. They brought tools, snacks, even volunteers from the academy. Then, one Friday morning, I heard a knock. I opened the door, expecting another friend from the station. Instead, I saw a young man in a sharp gray suit. "Miss Brooks." "Yes." "I'm Matt Driscoll. I'm Brendan's boss." I froze. "Did he send you?" He chuckled. "No, he doesn't even know I'm here." "Why are you here then?" He looked around at the building, the partially fixed roof, the new glass on the windows, the firehouse sign I was restoring. "I saw the news clip last night," he said. "The rescue, the fire, that little boy you pulled out of the building. It was my nephew." My mouth opened slightly. "You're what?" "My nephew, Jackson. I never knew who the firefighter was. Not until my sister called me crying after seeing your name on TV. She said, 'That woman saved my son.' I didn't know what to say." He smiled. "So I asked around, heard your last name, and I said to Brendan this morning, 'Didn't you say your sister was a burnout or something?' He just grunted. 'Never once mentioned you were the hero firefighter.'" He paused. "I came to say thank you, and if there's ever anything you need, anything at all, you call me." And just like that, the balance shifted. That moment, the one I'd waited my whole life for, had finally arrived. The world saw me, not as a burden, not as a failure, but as the hero firefighter. The door had barely shut behind Matt Driscoll when I leaned back against it, breath caught in my chest. The hero firefighter. He'd said it out loud. It felt surreal to hear it from someone who mattered, not someone offering pity or pretending to care. No, he wasn't trying to make me feel better. He saw the truth, and the timing couldn't have been better, because 2 days later I got a call. It was from a woman named Clarice, the president of the State Firefighter Memorial Foundation. She said she wanted to feature my story at the upcoming Hero Honors Gala. Said my name had come across her desk a dozen times over the last few months, especially after the warehouse fire footage had gone viral. Viral. I hadn't realized just how far it had spread, but apparently someone had captured a phone video of me pulling out the kid, Jackson, shielding him with my body just before the floor caved in. The clip had made its way onto social media, then the local news, then national morning shows. I'd been too busy scrubbing soot and fixing pipes to notice. Clarice said the gala would be hosted at the Grand Argent Hotel. Full black tie, and I would be presented with the Medal of Valor for outstanding service and bravery. I nearly dropped the phone. She told me to expect a formal package in the mail. I barely remembered how the call ended. My mind was racing with emotion, pride, and yes, nervousness, because the guest list, it would be full of chiefs, city council members, press, and corporate sponsors. And Brendan worked for one of those sponsors. 3 days before the event, I received my formal invite. Inside the envelope was a smaller card that said, "You may invite up to 2 guests." I held it in my hands for a long time. I thought about inviting Molly, my little sister, who once braided my hair and called me her superhero. But she hadn't stood up for me at the family meeting. She didn't look me in the eye anymore. Then I thought about inviting someone from the firehouse. Maybe Janie, who helped me fix the roof. Or Malachi, who drove 2 hours every weekend to haul supplies. But in the end, I left the guest slots blank. This was my night. No attachments. No explanations. When I stepped into the hotel lobby that night, all heads turned. I wasn't wearing boots or cargo pants or soot-smudged shirts. I wore a deep crimson dress that fit like it was made for me, my hair curled at the ends, and a gold pendant tucked at my collarbone, my grandmother's old medal, which she'd once given me after I graduated Fire Academy. I walked through that ballroom like I belonged, because I did, and then I saw him, Brendan. He was standing near the back of the room, next to a tall display board with a large company logo at the top. Driscoll and Partners. I froze. For a second, I thought about turning around and walking out. But then the MC called my name. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Medal of Valor recipient, Cassidy Brooks. Applause erupted, and I walked forward. Every step I took echoed with memories of every time they told me I was a disappointment, every time they laughed at my dreams, every time I cried behind the steering wheel, doubting myself. It all melted away in that walk. They read my citation, showed the rescue clip, and I gave a short speech, just 2 minutes long. I said thank you to my fellow firefighters. I thanked the boy who trusted me, and I finished with this. People will tell you what you can't do, but you don't need their permission to be good. You just have to be brave enough to be kind, even when no one else is. The crowd stood, and in the middle of that standing ovation, I caught sight of Brendan, mouth slightly open, eyes locked on mine. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. After the ceremony, Matt Driscoll came up and shook my hand in front of everyone. You know, he said loudly enough for a few nearby people to hear, you're the kind of person we need on every board we work with. Then he turned to Brendan, who had tried to slink away into the crowd, and said, This is your sister? You didn't tell me she was the Cassidy Brooks. Brendan swallowed hard. I didn't realize. Matt cut him off. My nephew still sleeps with the blanket she wrapped him in. That's what real leadership looks like. People murmured. Brendan turned red, and I just smiled politely and walked away. But the humiliation for him didn't end there. The next day, my phone buzzed nonstop. Apparently, the company Brendan worked for released a statement praising the Medal of Valor recipient, me, for her incredible service to the community. They even featured a photo of me shaking Matt's hand on their homepage, which meant everyone in the office saw it, including Brendan's own team. From what I heard later, through a very awkward voicemail he left me, his co-workers began whispering about how he'd never mentioned his sister was the honored firefighter. Some of them were furious. One even said, You had a hero in your family and treated her like a stray dog. He didn't answer when I called him back. I didn't really need to. The firehouse renovation picked up speed after that. Donations came in. Volunteers poured through the doors. We set up a program for teens interested in public service and fire safety. One night, as we were packing up gear after a long day of training drills, I heard a quiet voice at the door. It was Molly. She looked older, thinner. Hey, she said, holding something behind her back. What's up? I asked, still unsure what to expect. She walked in slowly. I heard about the medal. I saw the speech. Everyone at work did. I nodded. Then she pulled something from behind her back. It was an old photo. Me, her, and Grandma standing in front of the original firehouse when we were little. I found this in Mom's garage, she said. I thought maybe you should have it. My throat tightened. Thanks, I whispered. She stood awkwardly for a moment, then said, They were wrong about you, Cass. I was wrong too. I didn't respond, just hugged her. That night, I stood alone on the roof of the firehouse, looking out over the dark town, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not just because they finally saw me, but because I never needed them to. The fire in me had burned all along, and now they had no choice but to feel the heat.